טוב קהילה חלו רחמך והמרחם הטוב קהילה חלו רחמך והמרחם כי לא יתמו כי לא יתמו כי לא יתמו רחמך כי מעולם קיווינו לך. The shir should be l'refuat Morin v'Rabbeinu Harav Menachem Yoshua ben Yair Eisenstock b'toch Shach Olei Yisrael. When we enter in to Parashat Yitro, there are three questions that I want to introduce that could connect all together to one idea. At the end of Parashat B'Shalach, we read about the story of Amlek. And a lot of the Parshanim ask, what is the connection between Parashat Amlek, the milchama against Amlek, and Yitro coming to Am Yisrael? The second question is on the other side. Right after the story of Yitro, we have the story of Matan Torah. And so from both sides we have the question, why is Yitro in between the Parsha of Amalek and the introduction for Ma'amad Har Sinai? So those are the first two questions. And the third question is, why is Yitro Zoche that his name is named after a Parsha? We have no Parsha called Moshe. We have no Parsha called Avram or Aaron or Yaakov. But for some reason, Yitro, his name, is a Parsha in the Torah. And so I want to start through the Sefat Emet to understand what is the meaning of the name Yitro. And I think through that, and through a Rashi, the first Rashi in Parashat Yitro, maybe we could connect all three questions into one idea. And so the Sefat Emet in 1872 says, Adoni aviz keni mori v'rabi zichrono livracha hagid al shem Yitro. What's the idea of the name Yitro? So he says, Ki haya be'emet miותר. Rashi says that Yitro had 7 names, and one of the names was Yeter. Yeter means miותר. We don't need him. He had no purpose. He was nothing. He was מיותר. ורק נחלתו כתיב ואחר כך נתווסף לו וו לשון המשכה. He says at the beginning Yitro's name was Yeter, and they brought to his name one more letter, the letter Vav. And the letter Vav in Hebrew is Vav Hamshacha, Vav of connection. So he says Yitro went through 2 phases. Yitro at the beginning was miותר, and once he was added the name Vav, then Yitro became a name that needed to be emphasized in the Torah. Because Yitro went through a transformation. Yitro was miותר, and he connected himself to Am Yisrael. He brought himself out to Am Yisrael. So the name itself, with the new Vav, is so important to emphasize after Amalek and before Ma'amad Har Sinai. That Yitro has this concept of changing your personality and adding a Vav to your name. But I think Rashi understands this idea not only from the name, but from the connection between the end of last Parsha and the beginning of this Parsha. So the first pasuk in the Parasha says, Vayishma Yitro. So they say that Yitro heard, and he came out to Am Yisrael. So Rashi says on the words Vayishma Yitro, Ma shmu'a shama veba Kriat-ים-סוף ומלחמת עמלק. Rashi says, why does it need to say וישמע יתרו? Because we don't know why he came. Rashi answers, he came because of קריעת-ים-סוף and מלחמת עמלק. So Rashi is answering, why do we need to hear מלחמת עמלק? Because מלחמת עמלek brought Yitro to Am Yisrael. But the Eish Kodesh, the Piasetzner Rebbe, has an incredible question. And so the Eish Kodesh, in the year 1940 in the Warsaw Ghetto, he says like this, וישמע יתרו פירש רש"י מה שמועה שמע ובא קריעת-ים-סוף ומלחמת עמלק. Says the Eish Kodesh, מה שואל רש"י? מה שמועה שמע ובא? He says, I don't understand. What is Rashi asking? What did he hear and come? The pasuk says, "Ha-pasuk mefaresh ki hotzi Hashem et Yisrael mimitzrayim." Says the Eish Kodesh, I don't understand. The Torah itself says, why did he come? Because he heard Yetziat Mitzrayim. So what is Rashi asking? Ma shmu'a shama v'ba. So incredible answer. The Eish Kodesh says, לכן אפשר, רש"י זיכרונו לברכה שואל כזאת, מה שמועה שמע ובא? Rashi's not asking what he heard. The Torah says he heard Yetziat Mitzrayim. But he's saying, what did Yitro hear that made him come? Ma shmu'a shama v'ba. Why couldn't he just hear that there was Yetziat Mitzrayim and that's it? Send the shaliach to Moshe Rabbeinu. Why did he himself have to change? Why did he have to come? That is milchמת Amalek. Says the Eish Kodesh, there's a difference between Vayishma Yetziat Mitzrayim. Okay, I know the framework that was Yetziat Mitzrayim, but what did he hear that made him change so much that he changed his whole lifestyle and he comes out to the desert to Am Yisrael? That's milchמת Amalek. What happened in milchמת Amalek? In milchמת Amalek, what happened was ויזנב בך כל הנחשלים אחריך. Amalek come and say, we're going to not hurt your leaders. We're going to hurt the people that no one cares about. We're going to hurt the people that no one pays attention to the homeless person that lives right next to your house, to the broken heart and the broken people that no one has time, or no one wants to take the effort to listen or hear or take time to be there for those people. And so milchמת Amalek, what they were saying was, I want to stop the connection. I want to separate Am Yisrael. Or the whole world is afraid of Am Yisrael. So Amalek are going to come in and say, there's nothing. There's nothing special about Am Yisrael. So the idea of Amalek was to prevent the connection. So why did Yitro come? Because he realized that that is Am Yisrael. That Am Yisrael is the one nation, the one people that understand the idea of connection. So why does Yitro get the letter Vav? Because the letter Vav is the idea of he didn't only hear intellectually this concept of Am Yisrael, but he felt Am Yisrael. And because he felt Am Yisrael, he changed. He connected himself. And so here we get to the third question. Why is Yitro the introduction to Matan Torah. And so what happens so often is that Torah is something that makes me think I'm better than someone else. Sometimes I'm smarter than someone else. But the Torah, sadly enough, in some times or in some places, stays as this concept, this intellectual idea, but it doesn't come down to change a person. If I learned in the Beit Midrash, does it mean that I talk differently, that I eat differently, that I look at people differently? And so Yitro is the introduction to Matan Torah. Because he's saying that if you think that Matan Torah is the end, then you cannot understand Torah. I remember for me, personally, learning in Shiur Aleph in Yeshivat Otniel. And one night, after a few months being in yeshiva, I walked down to my caravan. And I was all into the learning, and I came to my friend, Hillel Mali. I call him the Rav Kook of our generation. And I said to him, Hillel, listen, I learned so many amazing things. I'm so happy. I'm so excited I came to yeshiva. And he looked at me in the eyes and he said to me, I want to tell you one sentence. HaTorah yechola liyot sam ha'chaim, v'Torah yechola liyot sam ha'mavet. He says, don't go thinking that the fact that you understood something is the end. The Torah is not the goal. The Torah is a means to an end. It's not the end. If the Torah becomes the end, if the Torah becomes the ideal, that look at me, look how much I learned, then that Torah is Sam HaMavet. But if the Torah is something that begins my ability to connect to my family, to people, to myself, to the world, only then is the Torah Sam HaChaim. So Yitro, we said, Ma Shmu'a Shama V'ba. What made him not only understand it in his sechel, but what made him live it? And the Sefat Emet said his name was at the beginning Yeter. And the vav of the connection is why you have a name in the Torah of a parsha named Yitro. And that is the introduction to Matan Torah. Because Matan Torah could be the beginning of a destruction. It could be the beginning of people not understanding why the Torah was given. Or it could be the beginning of learning how not only to know, but to know how to live, to know how to act, to know how to bring out every word and every concept we learn to the people and the world around us. Be'ezrat Hashem, we should be zoche, obviously to learn, but never ever to think that it ends there. Never to think that it ends in just the knowledge, but the knowledge ends where we start living in our day-to-day lives every concept we learn within the Batei Midrash.